All right, YouTube, it is finally time to insulate the walls of the pole barn here. And check out these huge rolls of insulation I got, 8 feet wide, so they'll fit right in between the posts. I'm really excited about this. I do want to talk to you about how much it costs, how much easier this is to install than this paper-faced insulation over here. Plus, I just think it's a way better product. I've already got some of this new stuff installed in the back over there. We'll go take a look at it in a second. But before we do that, I'll just show you what we're working with here. This is it's a fiberglass batt insulation. And then instead of paper faced, it's got this kind of vinyl, nice white vinyl facing on it. And this is R19. So I did kind of an experiment back here. I ordered a small quantity of this insulation from Menards, and actually Menards only sells 6 foot wide rolls, and that's why I had to have a seam here. So I did kind of a 6 foot horizontal piece and another 6 foot horizontal piece. With these new 8 foot wide rolls that I got direct from the manufacturer, I actually won't have this seam because I'll just have a continuous roll from top to bottom. What I did was buy these 60 millimeter black washers from Amazon, pretty cheap. There are companies like True Fast that make like kind of really nice expensive versions of these. This is the Amazon knockoff. And then I'm just using a 5-inch screw and some cap nails. This is the cap nailer, pneumatic air nailer that shoots these cap nails. This is the 5-inch screw, wood screw. I ordered those through Home Depot. And this is what that washer looks like. So the screw kind of fits in there, countersinks a little bit into the head of that nicely. So I'm gonna get started back on these two sections here. The first thing I've got to do is take out these braces, and I'll talk later about that. It's not a big deal on this particular wall to do that. And I'm actually gonna reuse these pieces of lumber to kind of make myself some sill plates here that I can fasten the insulation to along the bottom. All right, so I've got this area cleaned up and I've got my kind of pseudo sill plates installed. All I did was tuck some foam board under there because this scrap lumber isn't treated. So I don't want it in direct contact with the concrete. For the rest of them, once I run out of this foam board, I just had this laying around. I'll go get some treated lumber and just put it right on the floor. The other thing I did, I know it kind of looks weird to shop vac the floor here, but I am going to be rolling out this insulation on the floor on the vinyl face. So the cleaner I can make this floor, the less dirty the vinyl is once it goes up. Okay, so I got this first section up here. So you see I was able to cut it, you know, the full width and full kind of height of the bay. I am going to show you how I did it. I wanted to do one before filming so I could kind of figure out my system, because I am doing it by myself. So I'll do this one next, and I'll show you kind of my process for getting it up there. The other thing I'm gonna point out though, you'll notice that this piece is ripped. This was the beginning of the roll, and it seems like these are pretty prone to being damaged during shipping, freight. I had the same issue with the pieces, kind of the beginning of the roll that I bought from Menards. So I had some, you know, kind of extra. I just didn't use the beginning of the roll. And Menards gave me some money back for that. On these ones, I only have enough to do what I need to do in here, so I can't scrap any of these kind of beginning pieces. It probably would have been better for me to order just like either all in one roll or bigger rolls, but honestly, these are about the limit of what I can move by myself. So it's kind of a trade-off. I'm not mad about it. They do give you tape where you can tape up some of these rips, so that's what I'll end up doing. So let's get this one going and I will show you my process. Well, as soon as I roll this next piece out, I see a problem already that I just want to point out. I guess during the manufacturing process or something, I don't know what happened with the machine that they do this on, but it kind of left an extra flap in the middle of this piece. And I don't want to just compress this because then I'll lose the insulative value there. So it's not great quality control, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to kind of like take and cut this extra flap off and then hope, I hope this piece doesn't kind of delaminate because it's kind of a short piece. We'll see what happens with this one. So all I do once I mark my length is I stick a 2x4 across here, and then what I'll do is I'll cut on this side of the 2x4 to get my kind of full length for that piece, and then I'll also cut on this other side, and this side will be cut flush as far as the facing goes, but that gives me kind of the flap that I need at the bottom of the next piece. Just another kind of quality control issue with this insulation. You can see it's kind of walked itself off the, it's kind of walking itself to where there's a big flap on that side and no flap on this side. So luckily I had to cut this thing down more narrow anyway, because I don't need a full 8 feet width because the posts are 8 foot on center. But if I had ordered this to the exact spec that I needed, I would have been like pretty disappointed because I'd have been missing a flap on this side. So that's what it looks like with my little section cut out here. And then what I've done is I'll just slide my 2x4 underneath so that my knife kind of has something to dig into besides the concrete when I go to cut the backing, because this backing is really quite tough because it's stranded both ways. But with that 2x4 under there, it'll cut pretty nicely. So it'll just cut like that. Okay, so now this thing is cut to size, and just a note on the size, it is cut to the exact size of the bay, essentially. The first few I did, I kind of ran them an inch taller or an inch wider, thinking that by the time I screwed them in, it would kind of like, I would need some room for it to suck in. But I have found that going essentially the exact width or maybe a 1/4 inch over that, as far as the width of the fiberglass itself, has worked out the best. And then just to note, like I'm measuring specifically the fiberglass, the flaps, the backing really doesn't need to be accurate. So I've got this the size that I want it. And now's the tricky part, getting this up into that wall myself. I'm gonna use kind of some temporary blocking to do that, and I'll show you this process. Okay, so let me attempt to explain this. You just saw me fold this piece of insulation over onto this 2x4, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put like probably 3 to 4 of these washers with a shorter screw temporarily across this thing and screw it to this 2x4. And I'm only going to do that so that I can kind of roll it up and move it. I can't move this thing otherwise by myself. And then I'm going to hang it from a couple temporary blocks that I'm going to screw in here. And so it actually doesn't matter the exact distance that I've got this 2x4 from the top of the piece, and it doesn't even need to be level because I can kind of level it out with the blocks. But what I am trying to do is come far enough down. This is the piece that will go against the ceiling. And what I've done is come far enough down that when it's hanging on the temporary blocks, it'll be right around here and here. And what that'll allow me to do is attach it right up at the header and attach it right at this kind of first girt here, or the tallest girt here. And you know, once I've got it attached in 2 places, then I can drop that temporary 2x4 and the blocking out, and it can hang, and I won't be at risk of falling at all. So let me make an attempt to film this for you. It might be kind of hard to show, but you know, if it can help somebody, then great. If not, it'll just provide some entertainment value, hopefully. Okay, so let me bring you up here and show you what's going on. As you can see, it's not really that hard to kind of throw this whole roll up here once the 2x4 is holding it together. So I've still got my 2x4 in here, and I screwed it in with just 1 screw against the post to make sure it doesn't walk itself off of there. So you can see, only because I have this header here, I'm just delaminating this top part so I can stuff the insulation up in here, and then I'll end up attaching the facing to the header like I did over on that side. I just want to show you what that looks like. I made some cuts here because there is some blocking in there that I've got to get up against, but it tucks up in there nice and easy. I'm just kind of fluffing it up as best I can. And then I did want to point out, even on this 2x4, you can see the blocking back there. I ran that just a little bit too long, and because of that, I can't shift this piece of insulation over anymore. So there is maybe like a 1/2 inch gap here between the insulation and the post. So I'm not going to fuss over that or anything, but I will try to just do as best I can and kind of improve as I go on the next subsequent pieces. So what I'm going to do now, it's going to be really hard to film this next part because I just need both of my hands, but what you're going to see me do is essentially roll this back up, fasten that to the header, start fastening it down the sides, and fasten it to this top girt here all the way across. I'll show you that really quick. I mean, all it is, I think I showed this maybe in the beginning, but it's just these fasteners here, right? I'm just going to run those through, tighten them a little ways. But then after that's fastened, I'm gonna pull out my screw here, my screw on the other side, and I'm gonna pull out all three of these temporary kind of fasteners here. And I'm just gonna drop that 2x4 right past the scaffolding onto the ground the best I can. It's pretty clumsy. Get my blocking out of there, and once I do that, I'll come back and kind of show you what's up. Okay, so you can see it's laying nice and straight in there, right up against that post. You can see this is that little weird section where there was like a manufacturing defect that I had to cut a little bit. But, you know, I'm maybe, I would say, I mean, maybe I'm like an inch too long. I actually don't think so. I think it's the perfect length. Looks pretty good over here too. I mean, there's a little bit of a gap, that kind of half-inch gap I showed you. This piece is just, I'm just gonna pull it over as far as I can. And you can see like there's a little bit of delamination happening here, but it really doesn't matter. Like this stuff stays together really well. Okay, so you can see what this one looks like all fastened. I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. You know, wherever I've got wrinkles, I just kind of, you know, sometimes I try to fold it over, but I also know I'm gonna come back with tape later or do something to trim this out. One thing I should note in this corner, I didn't put any extra blocking in the corner or anything, so I actually am just pushing this a little further past the post and shooting nails into the post there. And that's okay because I don't plan on covering the walls with anything. But if you know, were looking to like plywood or drywall or anything, you would need some blocking for your wall covering to attach to in the corner there. And you can see, so you can see the difference between this piece and this piece in terms of the tears and everything. Once you get inside the roll, the pieces are super clean. So that piece took me about 2 hours to do, and that's with filming and, you know, kind of dawdling around a little bit like I like to do. I'm sure somebody could do that within an hour and a half to maybe an hour if they were really like getting after it. And that is it's a big difference between how long it took me to do these. These took me like, I would say 4 to 5 hours, maybe even 6 hours for each of these bays. Just so much measuring and cutting and taping and just a bunch of nonsense that I don't have to worry about with these big rolls. Oh, so really quickly about the X bracing that I took out of this wall here. The original building plans didn't even call for that bracing, and it's not required in my particular location. I actually only added that because I was working on the roof before I had the rest of the building sided with metal, and the metal on a pole barn is really what provides that shear strength to keep the walls from moving. And so it was actually, you could feel the whole kind of roof and the whole building moving a little bit when you were up there. It was really unsettling. So I came back through before any of the outer metal was on and did all this X bracing. And I always considered it to be kind of a temporary thing. But the one place I am going to keep it is on this front wall, because this front wall just doesn't have a lot of metal on it. So there's not a whole lot of shear strength to that wall supplied by the metal. And so I'm gonna have to figure out what I want to do with the insulation there. I have a feeling that I might just come back and apply the X's over top of the insulation. All right, so I'm gonna keep just going down this wall here and knocking out some more of these bays. I'm sure it's gonna get interesting around the windows. Hopefully my process gets better, gets faster, and I will just kind of share with you what I learn along the way. Okay, so I have decided that I actually want to trim things out as I go, just so that I can kind of like move things from one area of the shop to another and be done with certain sections. So let me show you a few things. First off, this is the tape here that you can use to patch holes in this stuff, and I actually used it right here to tape the seam. Like it would have looked like that. You can see how it's the same texture and really close to the same color. It sticks really well so far, so I think that'll look really good. They actually give you like double-sided tape to tape the seams so that you don't kind of see anything. I might try that, but this stuff looks pretty good. And then I did end up I'm just kind of using stuff that I have laying around, and I like the way this zip tape looks. You probably see it on buildings, like when they're being sheathed during the construction process. But I like the idea of kind of having black separations between these and kind of marking the posts with a black tape line. This stuff isn't made to be like UV resistant and exposed, so I'm not sure if it'll fade over time, but it seems to stick really well. And honestly, if it ever starts fading or peeling, I can always like cover it up with some trim. But the other thing I want to show you here is I do want to have some type of baseboard, so that if I kind of like run a piece of equipment or a cart or anything into the wall, that it has something stopping it and it just doesn't run into the insulation. But as you can see, if I just butt up a board against here, it's going to create like a pocket where it's just going to collect dust and dirt and all kinds of things. I don't really want that, so I think I've come up with a way to create kind of a nice looking baseboard protection, and then I think I can kind of like cut into this and layer it over. So I'm going to try that out and see how it looks. Well, we got to talk about this next piece of insulation here. Not good, not good. I ended up rolling this out because I'm waiting for these pieces of OSB to dry, and I decided to roll this one out the whole way, just to kind of check on the quality and see like if I wanted to cut off the end at all. And I'm glad I did. I did notice, like on the first piece, it looked like they gave me about 4 feet extra, and so by starting at the beginning of the roll where it was a little messed up, I was able to get this 4-foot section. So instead of 36 feet, they're giving me about 40 feet. And you see at the beginning here, it's got a seam. This piece is like completely delaminated, which I think is okay, right? I mean, they're giving me 4 extra feet. This is the beginning of the roll. I assume they are doing that because they know the roll has a tendency to get damaged during shipping. So that's not too big of a deal, but if you come down here, we got this same issue where the insulation kind of starts walking off the paper. Again, I wouldn't split hairs about that, not the biggest deal. But when we get down here, you start to see it gets like really wonky. And right about here, it's like the whole thing is just shifted. So there's a big, I don't know, you know, there's a big crease there. There's a big crease there. This whole section is kind of shifted over. And it is actually like, it is laminated like that. It's not like it delaminated and shifted or anything. Like, I don't know, just really poor kind of quality control manufacturing process on this one. And, you know, I could deal with it all the way up until about this point. But then, like, you know, this is not going to sit right. It's not going to sit correctly at all in the bay. So I feel like essentially from this point down is just scrap, which stinks. I mean, that's 12 feet, you know, that's about 12 feet. It also means that, you know, I'm stuck using the kind of damaged part from the front of the roll again. I was hoping to cut that off. And 12 feet is that's an entire bay worth of insulation that's damaged. So, I don't know about this one. This one is making me feel like I should actually contact the company and try to get some money back or see, I don't know. It's hard to tell right now if I'm gonna actually need more of this stuff if I don't use that piece. I did order extra, but I don't know that I ordered enough extra to be cutting off, you know, 12 feet of a 36-foot roll. So, I don't know. Not too happy about this one. But I'm going to try to just get two good sections out of this. I'll set it aside, and let's hope that the last two rolls are better than this one is. Am I being too picky with this piece? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I have no experience with commercial building products whatsoever. And I'm just like, I don't do any of this professionally. So maybe I'm just like the guy that cares way too much and has unrealistic expectations, but let me know what you think. All right, so it's starting to take shape here. This is the first section that I've got done. Let me kind of explain to you what I did. You saw me paint and cut some OSB. So I had 1/2-inch OSB left over from when I did my roof, and I'm just really using what I have around. So this is a 1 foot section of 1/2-inch OSB. I just painted it black, and then I've kind of like zipped it in with this going over it. That way, if anything hits the wall, it slides right down over this, doesn't get stuck in a pocket or anything like that. I did decide to zip around the outlets. I just kind of like the way it looks, trimming it out with the zip tape like that. And in addition, it'll kind of prevent, not that I'm really worried about it ripping, but it would prevent the rip from spreading around the outlets. I also decided to just trim around the window with it too, and use that to adhere to the window as well. And then all I've got to do is come in, and I will do some like pine trim or something inside the window. And then up top, I cut some strips of OSB into 6-inch pieces, and I'm just using that to hide that gap between the edge of the paper and the ceiling there. All right, so I wanted to check back in here because this is that piece of insulation that I was complaining about earlier. And it actually worked out because I have to cut it into sections to do around the window anyway. And what I decided to do with that skewed part is just kind of detach the insulation from the facing. But I wanted to show this because this cross section kind of shows, you can see how well this insulation fills the cavity. It's probably the only time I'm going to be able to show that. So it doesn't quite touch the, you know, there's an air gap between the insulation and the house wrap, but it fills that cavity completely. Looks really nice up there. So what I'll do is, in that part that was a little skewed, I'm just, you know, cutting sections out, which actually makes it easier to install anyway. And then I'll cut a piece of the facing and cover the whole thing. I did get more of the, like the whole back of the shop is now taped up in that fashion that I was showing. And I am really happy with the way that it's looking with the kind of trim installed. You can see I've got my construction adhesive along the bottom there just so nothing gets under there, and it's watertight. So just got to keep going. All right, so it's starting to look a lot different in here. I spent the whole day yesterday just moving everything from the middle over to the left side, trying to do some cleaning and organizing while I went, which always takes a while, but it's kind of starting to take shape in here, which is exciting. And I've got everything off the wall on this side, so I'm ready to do these 3 bays over here. The other thing quick I wanted to mention with this insulation, I was actually able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these 12-foot tall bays with just 2 of these rolls. And so that's 84 feet. And these rolls are only supposed to be 36 feet long. So I think they're giving me an extra maybe 6 to 8 feet per roll, which kind of makes up for all the, you know, all the tears and issues that I kind of showed earlier. So, and ultimately, because I was able to kind of cut it in pieces around this window here, I was able to use most of that roll that I was showing before. So ultimately, I mean, I don't even think I'm going to say anything to him about it, but we'll see. I guess, you know, the final test will be these last 2 rolls. We'll see if we have the same kind of quality issues with these. All right, so I got those 3 sections knocked out pretty quickly. I did have the same quality issue with this roll, actually probably worse than the last roll. So the quality issues seem to be pretty consistent. I have some rips I have to tape up here, and because it was kind of walking all over the place, in some places it's not as tight as I would have liked it to be, but I'm ready to be done with this project. I'm just prepping the last 3 sections now for this last roll. And I did buy some strapping because I'm gonna be doing the same thing I did here and putting some solid wall covering on in these areas. So just ready to get this last little section done. So let me show you this part because it's a little different. I just wanna show, because I'm keeping these X braces here, I am just compressing this insulation where it's against the wood there. I could kind of like carve it out, which is what you're supposed to do, but honestly, I'm okay with it. I'm just trying to kind of fluff it out where there's no wood. And then because I've got 2x4, I've got a 2x4 right here. I've just got this coming on top of it. But there's going to be a 2x4 every 2 feet, just like over there. And since I've got that, I really don't need those black plastic washers or the long screws anymore. These 2x4s will hold it just fine until the wall covering goes up. And then I've got my electrical outlets spaced out so that I can put my wall covering on, and then have the face plates sit flush. So here's what these last sections look like, all completed here. You can see I just cut 4-foot strips, and then there is a 2x4 under here. It was just easier to overlap the insulation over the 2x4 on the seams there. But so now I've got 2x4s every 2 feet, just like I do over here. And I will, I actually just went and got the material to cover up these kind of walls that, they're just going to be accent walls at this point. I'm not doing anything with the rest. But that is it. The final piece of insulation is in. The last little pieces were right around the door there. And so the only thing, I left a little piece out above the fuse panel there, just so I don't have anything in the way if I do want to run future kind of additional circuits. Well, similar to other videos on this channel, it has taken me 2 years to get around to editing this. I'm sorry, but also now we have the advantage of being able to talk about how the insulation is performing, and we can finally talk about cost. This is what the accent walls kind of look like. I don't know why I'm calling them accent walls, just because they look different from everything else, but these walls are nice because they give me, it's kind of easier to mount stuff on these walls since there's wood on them. My dad did come out and trim the windows out for me with some of the leftover black OSB and some pine board, so that's all done. And then I just kind of taped some of the edges, taped around electrical outlets, and then mounted the thermostat up there. This is as much as I'm going to finish it. It works for me. And after 2 years, this is probably where you would expect to see the most damage next to the lift. This damage was already here. That was some of that shipping damage. I still haven't put tape over it, to be honest. Any of the rips that you see in this is all from shipping damage. There hasn't been any additional damage or anything over the last couple of years. It's held up really well. I've definitely run stuff into it, but it's really durable. So let's talk numbers here. I went back and checked my receipts with SilverCote, and I paid them $1,500 shipped for 4 rolls of 8 feet by 36 feet insulation. So by my calculation, it's about $1.30 per square foot. I just looked at the current cost of the paper-faced insulation, and it's about the same. I think at the time, a couple of years ago when I bought this stuff, it was a little more expensive than the paper faced. It was maybe 20 or 30 cents more per square foot. But the reason I still say this is arguably the least expensive way you can insulate your pole barn is because, you know, it's far cheaper than spray foam. It's far cheaper than buying the foam, kind of the hard foam board. And then even though it costs a little bit more than the paper face stuff, or even the unfaced stuff that you can then kind of put like a clear vinyl barrier up against, like any other insulation, you're gonna have to cover the walls after you're done, at least with those two types of insulation, right? This stuff just has such a durable facing that even after 2 years, I have no plans to cover the walls in anything. And that's a huge savings, huge cost savings. So for me, this is absolutely the cheapest option I could have done to insulate this place. And then in terms of performance, it's been absolutely excellent. I can only speak to kind of my numbers, you know, by like habiting this shop for the past couple of years. But before insulating the walls, the furnace would probably kick on every 15 minutes in the winter. It only kicks on every maybe 45 minutes to an hour now, which is super nice because the furnace is pretty loud, right? And what I can say is, you know, prior to insulating the walls, I really didn't try to keep it at 60 in here all the time. I would turn it up when I was in here, but really I would turn it down to like, you know, 40, 50 degrees when I wasn't in here. And that was costing me about $200 a month just to do that in the wintertime. And now I keep it at 60 degrees in here or even more all the time. I walk out here and work in a t-shirt most of the time, and that's costing me about $150 a month at this point. So that's a big enough benefit for me to have spent the money that I spent. And I'm really happy with that. The other thing that I'll say is in the summertime, I've noticed actually a big difference that I didn't expect to notice, where it can be 90 degrees out during the day, like all day. And this is Michigan, so typically cools off a decent amount at night. And as long as I don't like open this door up during the middle of the day, the shop will really stay cool. Like it'll stay 70 degrees in here, even if it's been 90 degrees outside all day. I was not expecting that. I actually wanted to put like a mini split AC system in here at some point in the summer, because it can get pretty hot here in the summer. But after insulating the walls, I really don't even feel like I need air conditioning in this shop anymore, which I'm really happy about that. So thanks for watching. That's it for this insulation video. I'm sorry it took 2 years to get it out there, but hey, it's winter right now in North America, and hopefully this can help some people. See you next time.